This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Conservation Commission meeting of Thursday, October 6th, 2022. Chuck, I'm Ann Jo Jackson. I'll be running the meeting tonight in Rob Guller's absence. Chuck, do you want to go through the consistent with Chapter 107 stuff?
Yes, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time and participate when necessary. We encourage you to check before every meeting at the city's calendar site, as well as the posted agenda. It'll have the updated link for the Zoom to dial into this meeting, and also the phone numbers to call in if you can't do it by Zoom. So that being said, I'll now do a roll call of the commissioners here tonight. Member Cook.
Here.
Member Gradwell.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Sherman.
Here.
And Member Jackson.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum present.
Yes. Okay, we'll start off with the administrative briefing. Did you have anything to add, Chuck, to that?
I don't this week, no.
Okay,
Can I
then
make-
go quickly.
I think this is where I need to say, I wasn't at the last meeting, but I did review the recording. So
Excellent.
I should be all set for the two that were carried over.
Good. Thank you very much for it.
Okay.
I will open up the meeting for public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment upon environmental issues that are not on tonight's agenda. Chuck, do we have anyone in the audience who wishes to participate in this?
Looks like we have 13 attendees. I don't see any hands up at this time.
Okay, then I will close the public comment period and we'll move on to minutes review and approval for the minutes of September 21st, 2022. Has everyone had a chance to read them and make their changes? Speak now or forever hold your peace. And if it's okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of September 21st as amended.
Gradwell recommends that we accept the meeting minutes of the meeting for September 23rd.
I
As
second.
amended.
21st. Thank you both. Okay,
Roll call,
Um,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, moving on to continued business, we have NOI 0282859 10 Point Road, Salvatore and Nancy Vigorito, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc. And they have a request to continue to the October 19th meeting. Barry, you're on.
okay. We've moved to change NOI 0282859 10 Point Road to October 19th meeting.
And Commissioner Cook seconds.
Thank
Roll
you.
call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0282827 105 Wingersheik Road, lots A and B, owner 125 Wingersheik LLC, represented by Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal, requesting to continue to the October 19th meeting.
and Gradwell suggests we move this request NOI 0282827 105 Wingersheik Road, lots A and B, until the October 19th meeting.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have NOI 0282878 159 East Main Street, Nicholas Osgood, doing structural repairs to existing pilings in buffer zone to Gloucester Harbor and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Phil Dunn, Atlantic Fish and Seafood, and Julia Del Tufo, Collins Engineers, Inc. Do we have the applicants present?
I have Julie I'm promoting. I don't see Phil on here at the moment, but
Okay. And if you would give us your name and address for the record and a brief summary of the project, we'd appreciate it. Julia?
Can you hear me?
Unmuted? Yes, yes, we can.
Sorry, having a little bit of technical difficulty.
That's okay. I understand that completely. Name and address for the record and then a brief summary of where we are. Thank you.
My name and address or the client's?
Yours.
My name is Julia Del Tufo. I live in Barrington, New Hampshire.
Okay.
I'm representing Atlantic Fish and Seafood, Phil Dunn, with NSGJ Realty. A few Conservation Commission meetings ago, we had presented a project to repair some existing H-piles that have some pretty substantial corrosion. There are some through holes, and we just want to get in there and install some more steel to shore up those existing piles. And you weren't able to vote on it because of the lack of the DEP number. So we finally have a DEP number.
Yes, you
We're
do.
hoping we can move forward with this.
Okay. All right. Okay, and no emergency developed, so you didn't have to get any emergency certification. That's excellent. Okay. Commissioner comment, public comments. Let's open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on the project at 159 East Main Street?
have 13 attendees and I'm not seeing any hands up at this point.
Okay, then we will close the public comment period and move it on to commissioner comments.
All right, roll call. Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
No further comment?
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
No comments.
Member Jackson.
No comment at the risk of repeating, or no new comment, at the risk of repeating. You must maintain clean site in accordance with best management practices. So I know that's somewhere in a condition. Okay, then are
We're-
we ready?
Gradwell recommends a negative determination on RDA 1741.
Barry.
One ahead of us, Barry. This is NOI 2878.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, we want a positive
Close.
determination.
Barry, close
Barry?
close the public hearing.
All right. Want to close the public hearing on NOI 20-028-2878 for 159 East Main Street.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Now you get to move to approve.
Okay. Now we're going to go for a positive determination on NOI.
No, Barry. Barry, no.
No
It's
positive
NOI.
determination. Approve.
Approval on NOI 028-2878, 159 East Main Street.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, now we have an RDA coming up, Barry. RDA 1741 at 4 Point Road, Nicola Bach, to replace decking and railings on existing rear deck within buffer zone and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Nicola Bach, representing from Bach Builders LLC.
Promoting Nikki here. Are you there, Nikki?
Are you
She's
muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, name and address for the record, please, and then a brief description or summary of where we are.
Nicola Bach, 29 Woodbury Street, Gloucester, Mass. The work is being conducted at 4 Point Road in Gloucester, Mass. There was an existing deck and we removed the railings and the decking, including the treads and the handrail, and replaced them all with maintenance-free Trex and Radiance rail system.
Okay. And the resource area is what here?
It's
Buffer
buffer zone.
Buffer
to-
zone and LSCSF. Okay. Is this an after the fact application?
It is.
Okay. All right. Chuck, have you been out to the site?
I have not. I did not realize it was an after the fact application.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on RDA 1741 at 4 Point Road?
We have 17 attendees and I do not see any hands up.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period. Honestly, I would be more comfortable with this if somebody saw it, since it's after the fact.
I think that'd be best if we did a postponement on this particular
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Well, don't we still have to do a
Commissioner comment?
certificate of completion? Do we still have to do a certificate of completion on an RDA?
no,
No.
we just have to find that it's not, it is or is not impacting the resource areas. And
The
since
big
this,
question is, did anything expand in doing this?
No, in fact, the deck got a little bit smaller. And then we removed an upper deck, so it's non-existent now.
is the deck pervious?
Does it
Yeah,
have
I guess-
space between the woods?
Yes,
Just-
Spacing?
what we have there is, it's spacing, but we have a gutter system, incorporated underneath the deck that leads down into a dry well. And that
Oh.
was, the dry well was existing under the stair.
Okay, let's go through, let's be formal. Let's go through commissioner comments and see how comfortable people are with this.
All right, Member Cook,
No comments. I'm comfortable with it.
Member Gradwell,
With the reduction of one of the balconies, I think that it would be okay, but if so, just to postpone it for the 2 weeks to allow Chuck to get out there wouldn't be so terrible.
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
In my opinion, because this work was done without any filing and this is an after the fact, I believe the site should be inspected before we make a determination.
and Member Jackson.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Sherman. And I also don't want to set precedents of people doing work. Is that, you okay with that, Ms. Bach? If we postpone this to the next meeting, just to provide the opportunity for someone to go out there and look at it?
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. Just to explain the situation, we did have full permitting on this job. And then the homeowner asked us just to replace the finishing on the deck, and he had given me an elevation survey, which I think forwarded, and there's also a home in front of us. So it just didn't occur to me that it was a violation, and I apologize for that. And then when we had our final occupancy inspection, the building inspector said, hey, this isn't on your original permit to replace the deck finishes. And I said, nope, you're right, it's not. It was an add-on. I didn't amend my permit. And he's like, well, seeing as you are in the flood, not the flood zone, the buffer zone, why don't we go ahead and splinter it off from your permit? So it's actually, I had to pull a second permit for this job
Okay.
after the fact. So that's sort of like the sequence of what happened.
Okay.
The homeowner, the project is complete. It's a second home. The homeowner does not live there. the property is locked with an alarm system and cameras. So I would ask maybe if someone's going to go down there that they let me know. I think I probably will have to be there and or at least alert the homeowner that someone will be walking around his property.
Of course. And I don't, unless other commissioners are interested, I see no reason for anyone beyond the agent to go out and take a look at it.
Okay.
So
It's
he can.
obviously on the rear side of the building, just so everyone knows how to identify it. And there is a driveway on the rear of the building as well.
Okay, okay. Then why don't we plan to continue this to the meeting of October 20th? Nope,
Right.
5 and 7 or 12, 19th. And
I'm sorry, October
I don't,
19th.
yeah, October 19th. Normally we do meet on Wednesdays.
And it's, we're still Zooming. There's no,
Yes,
okay,
Yeah.
great.
still
Okay.
Zooming.
Do I need to do
Um,
anything else for you or is just show up at
Well,
on the 19th?
Have you and Chuck arrange a convenient, mutually convenient time, and he can take a look at the project. And I don't anticipate a problem given the description, but it's just kind of nice for us to check it out.
Absolutely, you should. Mhm.
Okay,
I'll
fair.
coordinate that with you, Nikki, and then if I have any concerns during the site visit, I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks very much.
Barry, do you want to continue this?
Bradwell wants to request to continue to October 19th, RDA 1741 4 Point Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member President,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have NOI 0282874 at 1 Harbor Loop, Building Center of Gloucester, owned by Building Center of Gloucester for construction of a new concrete wall in Gloucester Harbor and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc. Mr. Judd, if you are here, name and address and a summary of where we are.
John is not here tonight, but I'm promoting Mr. Faherty. He should be.
Ah, okay, that works too.
Oh, he's got his hand up here. Can you hear us, Mike?
Are you muted?
He's showing, okay.
And now you should be able to hear me, right?
Yep.
Yes,
we
we
can
can,
hear you.
Yes or no?
yes,
Okay,
yes, we can hear you.
okay, thank you. Ask Chuck to put on the screen the revision, the slight revision or modification that we made that John sent over to you. Okay, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Can we ask for a name and address for the record?
Okay, my name is Michael Faherty. I live at 45 Rocky Neck Avenue. I am an attorney, and in this instance, substituting for John, and I'm representing my client, the Building Center. In response to a suggestion that was made at a site visit, which was attended by Mr. Gradwell and Mr. Sargent, as well as Mr. Shade, we've added some plantings along the inside section of the wall, proposed wall, in an effort to do a little bit more with the drainage, which we contend will be very insignificant because of the levelness of the project. But this will be an additional buffer and treatment of any runoff that comes from the site. I emphasize the fact that the site is 8 feet above the sea level up in the middle of the parking area, and then all the way down to the wall, it's at 6. So it's only a 2-foot change in elevation of the parking area and the area which the equipment and the materials that are sold at the building center are stored. That's the only change from what we had. I had another meeting with Mr. Sherman and Mr. Cook on Monday. And I hope we addressed questions that they had and that we can proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at One Harbor Loop?
We currently have 17 attendees and no hands are currently up.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. Let's go on for commissioner comments.
Okay, Member Cook. You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. No, the only comment that I had is, were there any comments back from Division of Marine Fisheries or the DEP? As I mentioned, my concern is, are we going to be considered armoring the bank? Because it slopes down, we are pulling it back and excavating and putting in the new wall, but it is higher than the existing grade. So the real question comes, I'm wondering if DEP made a note of that.
There were no DEP comments or from Marine Fisheries. I did have Shellfish and Harbor Master. Shellfish warden had no problem with it. Harbor Master only want to make sure that the boom was in place and that any free floating debris was cleaned up by the contractor.
Okay, I was just wondering, only because I know we're bringing it up to the grade of the parking lot. So just wondering how they determined that, but that's fine. I have no problems with it.
Yeah, so I guess it's my understanding for DEP that in a designated port area, which this would fall under, because of all of the man-made structures that exist throughout the port area, that there's not as much of a there's not as much regulation on building a seawall like that. The concern is more, I guess, for any changes in the underwater portion and how that might affect the stability of the bank on the project area or the adjacent areas. That being said, it's also within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And CZM does, recommend that commissions think about, if any additional height on seawalls and stuff like that, or new seawalls, if it might create any conditions that would, cause adverse effects to adjacent parcels or to the subject property. So that would then allow consideration of any, channelization of flow during storm events or scouring or anything like that. But there was no comments made by DEP at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Who's next in the roll call, Chuck?
Member Gradwell.
Okay,
Rodwell, very much appreciates you putting in that little bit of a rain garden. That will help with the situation. The fact that this wall is going in without filter fabric, which will allow some sediment to go out into the harbor, kind of alleviates the situation of armoring the bank. And we're only coming up to the height of the parking lot anyways. I don't see any problem with it. And I think that they're going to do a lot more good for the harbor by pulling out all of those additional pilings that are in there and won't be there in the future. Thank you.
Member Sargent.
Thank you for a productive site visit. Mitigation plantings will help in treating stormwater runoff from the parking lot. the removal of relic pilings and debris on the beach, as well as a crumbling seawall, will be a net benefit for the environment. Thank you.
And Member Sherman,
No comment.
Member Jackson,
Yes, Mr. Faherty, could you tell me what the seawall meets on both ends? Generally, good practices require that it taper down to meet the existing levels on each end within over a 15 to 20-foot area. What's happening? What does it meet?
Well, on the side closest to the city of Gloucester's property, the I-4C2 parcel,
Yep.
okay, the elevation of that parcel immediately adjacent to the building center property is actually lower, okay? So if we were to try and taper this wall down to get to it, it would lose all its effectiveness because it would be coming down to the elevation in the I-4C2 parcel. So as was pointed out, this is not a high wall. We're simply trying to make sure that we retain the whole space above it. Okay, so that couldn't happen, you know, with I-4C2 there. On the other side, it'll end up on continuing in our own property. It does not extend onto anyone else's property. It stays within the footprint of the building center's property.
On the I-4C2 side now, what is the relative height?
I wouldn't want to try and guess what the relative height is. I do know that that section ponds frequently on its city side of the property. It's lower, but I wouldn't want to try to give you a number.
Yeah, okay.
What it is. There's a fence between the properties also, and the new wall would end at the fence.
Okay. Okay, I have no further comments. Chuck, you've said, do you have anything to add to your comments? And thank you for them.
no, I mean, I guess you know, it's replacing a previous wall. You know, so that part seems to be, you know, nothing that causes concern. I guess it's just the additional height on that wall. There's concerns about it, you know, how it might change things during a storm flow, but, you know, that would be the only question there is if there's, you know, maybe that portion of the wall is not extended all the way to the end. But otherwise, I think the overall project, I think, is actually a net benefit for what's going on in that area, with the removal of the piles and cleaning up that rock and stuff there. I think that'll help protect the bank there that's obviously eroded.
Okay, okay, thank you. Then if there are no further questions, I think we're ready to close the public hearing, Barry.
Gradwell would like to close the public hearing on NOI 0282874, One Harbor Loop, Building Center of Gloucester.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. And Barry, you want to move to, go ahead.
Yep. To accept NOI 0282874, One Harbor Loop, Building Center of Gloucester.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Hey, you're all set, Mr. Faherty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have NRAD 0282876 at 187 Atlantic Street. Michael Procopio, represented by Mary Rimmer of Rimmer Environmental Consulting, LLC. And if Mary is here, could she give her name and address for the record and a brief summary of where we are?
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. This is a continuation of an ANRAD, and we continued largely for the DEP file number, which we now have. We also, at the request of the membership, we provided 40 scale plans so that they were a little bit easier to read. And I know that at the previous meeting, one of the commissioners had questioned about the isolated wetland. That's the C series that's located sort of in the north central portion of the site. If you want to point that out, check south or to the right, down right there. Exactly. 5 little flags right there. They're about 805 square feet. It was too small to be jurisdictional under the ordinance. And I had mistakenly said at the last meeting that was taken off the plan, but obviously it is not. And it's there, but it's just identified as non-jurisdictional. So that's an area that has some wetland shrubs around it, but it was surrounded by upland vegetation, cedar, oaks, honeysuckle, whatnot. So with that, and unless you'd like me to go through the resource boundaries again on this parcel, I'm happy to do that. Otherwise, I'll just be available for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any reason to repeat those unless one of the commissioner comments that they would like to do so. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 187 Atlantic Street?
We currently have 17 attendees. We've got a couple hands popping up. Robert Bishop is first here.
Hi, my name is Robert Bishop. I'm 176 Atlantic Street in Gloucester. And I just have a couple quick questions. On the map with the different dotted colored lines, where does that data actually come from? How did the applicant distinguish that? And then also I would like to maybe suggest to the committee and the applicant Procopio to maybe go out in this lovely, beautiful area over there at full moon, high tide, because that water comes in really high. I'm across the street by about 500 feet. And the last harvest moon we had, I had beautiful waterfront property. So I just want to put that into consideration as well with the water concerns in the Clan Flats in this whole area. We've already approved the last across the street. And I just want to, moving forward, just to make sure we protect everything around us, guys. Thank you very much.
Certainly, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else to comment prior to Ms. Rimmer answering the questions?
Yes, I have John Myers here.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So my name is John Myers. My wife and I are homeowners at 198 Atlantic Street. On the plan, it says Van Buskirk, but we recently purchased that home. We're abutters to the property in question. I'm speaking tonight to voice my concerns over delineation of wetlands of this property, mostly due to the fact that the boundaries that are going to be set with this ANRAD will be used to inform location and size of future septic, as well as probable future stormwater retention mitigation systems. I understand that the ANRAD approval does not constitute approval of any development on the site, but I would urge that we consider following points for the remainder of this call, as well as going forward on this property. My primary concern is that the property does form a natural wind wave buffer between our current community and the Jones River, and that any development on this property that's proposed to this property will affect that condition in one way or the other. I'm concerned about the long-term climate resiliency that will be negatively affected by any development on the property, of which this discussion is just the first step. And I would like to request, in the spirit of transparency, that all current and future officially submitted documentation related to this property be made available in AutoCAD.dwg format if possible, with all layers intact, and posted online before future meetings. It's a complicated site. Every foot's going to matter when it comes to regrading, potentially blasting in the future. So we would just like to have that information be made in a digital format when it comes to location of any future development. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. And all materials are available on the site. Am I correct, Chuck, for the public to view?
Yes, we have them available on the city's website.
Okay, Ms. Rimmer, would you like to, do we have anyone else ready to comment?
I do not see any other hands up at this point.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment period. Ms. Rimmer, would you like to respond?
Sure. So the wetland delineations, the resource boundary delineations on the site were done in the field. The limit of the salt marsh and associated wetland, freshwater wetland extending landward of it, were delineated in the field by inspection of the vegetative community, 50% or more wetland plant species for the freshwater section, and salt tolerant plants for the salt marsh section. Most of the wetland delineation occurs right at the edge of a stone wall that surrounds much of the site. So it's a very clear, distinct boundary for that resource area. We also have 200 feet extending from mean high water of the Jones River that extend onto the project site. But the landwardmost resource is actually the top of Coastal Bank, and that occurs, and that's determined by survey, topographic survey, and the transects that were included in the files. We follow DEP's coastal bank delineation policy for identifying where the top of the coastal bank is, because that's where the 100-foot buffer zone is measured from. And you can see on this plan the landwardmost sort of area that's identified as the 100-foot buffer zone from coastal bank, and that's the dark dashed line. So anything that's and in some cases that the riverfront boundary actually comes out, it extends, well, I guess it just in one corner, it extends out further than the coastal bank right there. Yeah. But for the most part, you know, a large portion of this project site is outside of Commission's jurisdiction. The portions that are within 100 feet of that coastal bank line are within jurisdiction. And again, that's determined by topographic survey. It's the slope relative to the 100-year flood elevation, which in this site is elevation 13, which is the orange line that's shown on this plan. In some places, the orange line intersects the coastal bank line, and they are one and the same. And so there are a number of different categories of resource areas. They're delineated in different ways. Some of them are delineated, like I said, specifically by wetland scientists, that would be me in the field. Others are delineated by engineering and survey calculations, which would be the coastal bank line, which was reviewed by myself and the project engineer, Mackenzie Engineering. So hopefully that answers the question. We certainly provide, you know, the materials are provided in digital format to the Conservation Commission. I'm not sure about the AutoCAD format. I would have to check with the engineer on that. That's not typical that the AutoCAD files are provided to the public. So that I don't know about, but anyway, that hopefully that answers your questions about the delineation methods. This is a not a required procedure. This is a voluntary procedure to go through this step to help guide the planning process so that we're all in agreement with where the resource boundaries are for any future development.
Thank you very much. Well spoken. Okay, let's open this up to commissioner comments.
Okay, Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Graball,
No comment.
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
No comments.
and Member Jackson.
No comments. Do you have any additional input on this, Chuck? You've been out to the site.
No, I walked the entire perimeter with Mary, and I was seeing, yeah, it was pretty straightforward in the majority of the property there. Very distinct vegetation changes along, you know, that stone wall that pretty much went along the entire perimeter, pretty much right at that salt marsh line. So I'm very comfortable with what I saw out there.
Okay, and we now have a DEP number, so we can act. Barry, if you would like to close the public hearing.
Bradwell would like to close the public hearing on NRAD 028-2876-187 Atlantic Street.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Barry, you want to
Right,
make a
I'd
motion
like
to,
to get a positive determination on ANRAD 028.
No, Barry, no.
nope, approve, approve.
Want to approve the determination on ANRAD 028-2876-187 Atlantic Street.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, you're all set, Ms. Rimmer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we start on new business. And first up is NOI 028-2877 at 31 Thatcher Road, Lynn Silva, for construction of an addition to single-family home in Salt Marsh to Riverfront Coastal Resource Area and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by William Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management, Inc. Mr. Manuel, name and address for the record.
Should be popping up here. There we go.
All right, so there's always that little uncomfortable pause and silence as you're promoted to the panelist, and a little bit of panic there too. So this is Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management, Danvers, Massachusetts, and this is a project at 31 Thatcher Road. For the commission members might remember the project I did at 21 Thatcher Road. And it's pretty much the same. It was just a couple of doors down, and it was pretty much the same. There was lawn from the street all the way to the edge of the salt marsh. There was land subject to coastal storm flowage that extended up about 2/3 of the way into the lot. That particular project at 21 happened to be a tear down and rebuild, and this is basically adding an addition onto the existing home, an addition on the left side. The applicants have already secured a special permit to convert their home from a single family to a two-family home. And so the last part of this would be the order of conditions to actually construct this. And so all of the work happens to be within a lawn area. The important things that the commission likes to hear is how much impervious surface between the new rooftop and the front porch, covered front porch. There is an increase of 1,375 square feet. And there is, we've provided a similar number of mitigation along the back of the property line, right along the wetland boundary. And what I'm seeing here, Chuck, is this is not the plan I was expecting. And I wonder if I gave you the incorrect plan to show.
And here, let me see what else I have in the folder here.
And I could share, if you don't have the correct plan, I can share my screen and show you.
Yeah, that's the only plan I have here. But
what I might have done is incorrectly sent you electronically an earlier version of the plan, but the plans you have on file are the correct plans.
Okay.
So if you'd like me to share my screen.
Yep. There you go. Should be able to do it now.
All right, these are the paper plans that you have in your file. And so this shows the addition here and shows the area of mitigation right along the back. This is 1,375 square feet minimum. We have a chart of impervious coverage over here and our net total of impervious. And I have suggested shrubs and spacing for the mitigation area. And this is all consistent with your mitigation policy. We do show a mulch sock erosion control barrier to hem in the work. It's a fairly tight work site. It'll have a multi-level deck on the back. It's a pervious feature. There'd be no roof on the deck. And no tree removals or anything like that. Everything, as I said, occurs within the existing grass area.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Let's open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 31 Thatcher Road?
We have 13 attendees and I do not see any hands up at the moment.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period. Commissioner comments?
Member Cook?
Okay, is this on pilings?
No, this will have a foundation with flood vent openings.
Okay, I think because we're starting to deal with the new regulations in regards to multifamily construction, we're right now, this is a proposal that's more than the size of the existing house. So basically, we're building a new house attached to the old one. And I think in this case, it needs to be on pilings.
Member
Well,
Gradwell?
it's okay. That's right.
It is an awfully large addition, but we have no restrictions on that. No further comment.
Member Sargent?
I would have preferred a 2-to-1 mitigation for the increase in impervious surfaces. And I also note that it would have been easy to decrease the added impervious surfaces by not paving the driveways. And there should be a minimum of 2 years monitoring of the mortality of the mitigation plantings.
Member Sherman?
I share Member Cook's concerns about this additional structure within such close proximity to the salt marsh. It's only 62 feet is not a long distance. And I do have concerns about something being built without pilings. I mean, in such proximity to the salt marsh.
Member Jackson?
Yes, currently, it was commented, I think Mr. Gradwell, that we don't have the ability right now to require pilings in land subject to coastal storm flowage since there are no performance standards. I apparently am looking at the older plans. So I noticed there was a deck being added. I would want to know if the deck is pervious. I'd like more detail on the mitigation and wonder if you would consider making the driveway pervious rather than impervious. I'll work on maintain lawn. And it was mentioned as riverfront. It's not riverfront, is it?
No, it is not. It's, the back of the parcel is right about where the riverfront would extend to.
So it is or is not?
It is not, yeah.
Okay, no, not riverfront. All right. Okay, Mr. Manuel?
Yeah, so let me try to work backwards. The deck is in fact a pervious feature. There's no roof over the deck. The mitigation, as you know, there's no regulations that you have. It's a voluntary sort of contribution to try to improve conditions on the site. And we have provided at least a 1-to-1. I said a minimum, and if it ends up being larger, you know, that's all well and good for the commission. But I think it's been fairly consistent that we provide a 1-to-1 ratio as opposed to a 2-to-1, particularly with the amount of area that it would take up. So we'd like to stay with the 1-to-1 ratio. The driveway, as you'll notice, is outside of the buffer zone and outside of land subject to coastal storm flowage. So there really is no jurisdiction on that. But I would speak with the owner and see if they're amenable to making that pervious. In terms of pilings versus flood vents, that's really a state building code. And by incorporating the flood vents is an acceptable procedure for working in the land subject to coastal storm flowage. And the ultimate call on that is going to be the building inspector. But it will allow any advancing floodwaters to inundate the area underneath this building. So it essentially serves the same function as being on piles.
Okay. I would like more detail on the you have suggested plants, which is a little vague. The plants that you suggested seem to be appropriate. But I would like a little more detail on the planting plan. I'm perfectly willing to move forward with this project, subject to the condition that the agent receive a more detailed planting plan. Does that work for you, Mr. Manuel?
Yeah, we could provide, I do have a spacing specification and plants, and I believe I have size there too, but we can have we could show you where the plants will go, and so not a problem.
I don't like the word suggested. I like the word, these will be the plantings.
Yeah, the reason I do that is because at the time of purchase, you never know what's available at the nurseries.
Yeah.
So I try to give a list of things, and that way, if one's not available, then you can go to the next one.
I would be happy.
But that's
if-
fine. We can
Yeah, we can do
specify it.
that way, or you can report variations to the agent.
Okay.
Let's go with the planting plan, and if it proves to be a challenge, I'll be okay with reporting changes to the agent. Okay, if we're ready to move forward, Mr. Gradwell, would you like to close the public hearing? Mr. Gradwell? Do we have you? Are you muted?
Yeah, Chuck turned me off. I would like to close the meeting on NOI 0282877 31 Thatcher Road.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Sherman,
Yes,
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, do you want to move forward with approval, Mr. Gradwell?
well, approve NOI 0282877 31 Thatcher Road as amended.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
No.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Sherman,
no,
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, 3-2. Squeaked by,
that
Mr.
is,
Gradwell.
we have a minimum of 4 that's required to pass. That is, having a hard time with the word, but a 3-2 vote does not pass. We need a 4 vote or more. Quorum is 4 for this committee.
But I believe it is a majority vote of the people present.
No, it's a quorum.
But we have
we
a
have a
quorum.
quorum. We have 5 people, we
have
have a quorum.
No, 4 people have to vote for it to be accepted.
I think you're wrong, Barry. But I will defer. Does anybody know? Okay.
I believe you're right. I believe you're right. I believe we have a quorum of 5 people, and after we have more than 4 people present is a quorum, and majority rules.
Okay. Well, we're leaving it at a 3-2 vote. Chuck, can you look into that?
I'm pretty sure that's correct. Yes, if the majority of the quorum present votes yes, then it passes. If it was a tie, then it would not pass. But since we do have a majority of the quorum present, I believe it passes. But I will double check on that just to make sure.
I think that we ought to do a continuation on this one for the time being. And the continuation would also give the applicant more time to try and find some ways to get a more positive vote for his favor.
Well, I don't know if we can actually do a continuation because we've already voted on it.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think what Chuck needs to review it, and it's depending on what the ruling is, it's either going to pass or not pass.
Could Barry,
Well,
This
you
question came
you
up.
can make a decision to rescind your vote. I agree with Barry with this uncertainty. I would not want to leave this hearing closed because I would want some certainty on that. But I
We had
also,
this problem come up on 10 Sumac Road on there putting in a pier. And I had Adrian look into the situation and she agreed with me that you need 4 to have a quorum. And this goes back to the original question that I posed to the lawyer that we had on the board 10 years ago or 6 years ago. And he was in agreement with me that you need. We had one on Essex Avenue that came up with the same situation. He took a continuation. The next day, next meeting, he voted on it. And John Pena changed his vote as he had changed the planting situation and everything was then accepted. So I think that we need to rescind the vote and have a continuation.
I would like to reconsider my vote and abstain from the vote. So therefore, it's a 2-2 tie.
can we just rescind the vote?
yes. Barry, why don't you move to rescind the vote, to rescind your motion?
Bradwell moves to rescind the vote on NOI 0282877 31 Thatcher Road, and for a continuation till the 19th of October for this motion.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
And discussion on that motion before you vote, please?
Yes, I would like to discuss too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I am curious what issues the 2 members, Mr. Cook and Mr. Sherman, what issues are of concern to you that I could possibly address?
And my position is, I feel that it should be on pilings. I know you're gonna argue back that the building code does it. It's in coastal zones, it's in land subject to coastal storm flowage. By putting a foundation in there, we increase the risk of more runoff around the foundation than if we had the footings. So I feel that it should be on pilings in the area.
Commissioner Sherman, do you have any comment?
Mr. Mayor, I expressed my concern with the adding this amount of impervious surface within such proximity to the salt marsh. And I think the overall project will have a detrimental environmental impact.
I will look for ways to make commission members more comfortable with this project. It is a buffer zone project. It's entirely consistent with other projects that you approve, but we'll see what we can come back with in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. And I will just add one more point. I'm looking at the MACC newsletter, March, April 2010, in which this question is discussed. And it says, under 310 CMR 10052, an action taken by the Conservation Commission must be taken by more than half the members present at a meeting of at least a quorum. We have a meeting of at least a quorum. There are more than half the members and of 5 people, and more than half voted for it. So we will mull over that. And meanwhile, we've continued the project and we will see you.
In 2 weeks.
We need to
We
move.
actually have a vote.
We
Yeah,
haven't,
We need to continue, we need to vote to continue. Barry, would you like to move that?
Was to continue NOI 0282877 31 Thatcher Road till October 19th, 2022.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
yes,
Member Sherman,
yes,
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have amendment to NOI 0282640, Shore Road, Magnolia Pier, City of Gloucester, represented by David Smith, GZA Geo Environmental, Inc. Is Mr. Smith here? And if so, could he give his name and address for the record and a summary of the project?
I've promoted him to panelist, so he should be here any moment. There we go.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Smith with GZA 144 Elm Street, Amesbury, here representing the City of Gloucester, an amendment request. And this is for the proposed Magnolia Pier reconstruction project, where we obtained an order of condition from the Commission back in March of 2019. This is for the, it was for the full reconstruction of the Magnolia Pier after sustaining some significant storm damage from the March 2018 storm event. With that project, we fully reconstructed the pier, raised the elevation of the majority of the pier, added some additional piles to resist future impacts. We also included a new aluminum gangway that provided access down to the existing timber float. That project was under construction, started construction in the summer of 2019 and was completed in the late summer, early fall of 2020. Unfortunately, just after the project was completed, on or about September 23rd of 2020, a significant coastal storm event took place. The seasonal gangway and float were in position at the time, and the float, due to the wave impacts from the coastal storm, the float bounced all over the place, and ultimately the gangway parted ways from the float connection and partially fell into the water, and the float got significantly damaged after that event. The float and gangway were removed, and they have not been installed back at the pier site since. Been in communication with folks at the city about this project going forward, and we came up with an idea of installing, for lack of a better term, it's commonly known as a gallows frame, to be able to improve this site with regard to the float and the gangway. The gallows frame, so this drawing you see in front of you is pretty much an as-built drawing from the pier construction work. So it was in the same footprint of the existing pier. That pier dated back to the 1930s. By all accounts, the pier came out pretty well. I think everyone was pleased at the overall construction. So the proposed project here for this amendment would be to add a gallows frame. So basically it's a frame that's two vertical plumb piles with a heavy duty beam that connects the tops of those piles. And then we would have two batter piles on each side that would add some rigidity to this frame, both in the sort of the X and Y direction. So there'd be 6 piles total that would be installed, and they'd be installed midway out on offset from that pier. The gangway that we have that we purchased as part of the pier reconstruction work, that's going to get repaired, and then it's going to get reused. That's a 40-foot gangway, so we're going to install this about 20 feet offset from the pier. And the timber float that was on the site was a large timber float that had been in existence since 2016. It was never constructed properly for the particular site, It was a large float. It was 20 by 30. The harbor master suggested to reduce that size. So we're going to go with a 12 by 24 foot float. At the site, it'll be a timber float. We're certainly going to be able to improve, in addition to this gallows frame, we're going to improve the connections that the gangway has to the float, and then replace the mooring chains that are currently out there. The moorings are going to stay in place, and then they're going to be adjusted properly along with that connection of the gangway to the float. So the benefit of having this gallows frame is that when it is in position during the summer months, is that if a storm is pending, that someone can go out to the site, presumably the harbor master department, disconnect the gangway from the float, which would be an easy connection, and then winch up the gangway using this frame. And there'll be a manual winch system, like a chain fall, that will be attached to this frame midway along the gangway. There'll be some straps down there to be able to wrap around the gangway. And then once it's disconnected from the float, it can be lifted up and pretty much positioned horizontally at the top of the pier. And then when a storm comes, that connection, the gangway won't get impacted by the up and down of the motion of the float, and cause the damage that occurred a couple of years ago. The float would be able to just bounce up and down, and then eventually, when the storm passes and you get nice summertime conditions out there, that gangway can be lowered. So that's the project in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at Magnolia Pier?
I don't know. Do we do public comment on extensions?
It's an amendment.
Amendment. Let's like.
Okay. Sorry, I'm used to amendments appearing elsewhere on the agenda. Okay. We're all still learning.
There's 12 attendees and there are no hands up.
Okay, so it's a moot point. We'll close the public comment period. Okay. Next up, commissioner comments.
Member Cook.
No comments.
It looks like we may have a late public comment. Somebody just put their hand up. Should we?
Yeah, why not? I've started it. Go ahead.
Got Doug Rennie.
Thank you. Sorry, I couldn't be other than on the Zoom tonight. I'm actually an abutter, and I actually was trying to get online to see what this design was last night, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked pretty thoroughly.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we once again get a name and address for the record?
My name is Doug Rennie, and I'm at 58 Shore Road. I'm adjacent to the dock.
Thank you.
And we've been here for about 20 years, and it's great to have the dock in place. I know it's a big neighborhood asset. That's for certain. It's great to have the float being presented. I think the aspect of the smaller float is definitely the right direction. I think the only thing is, from a neighbor perspective, is just we've talked briefly with one another. Was just wondering what the aesthetics were going to look like. Just the it's. I think having to deal with the wave action is a very important engineering aspect. We all know Magnolia Harbor has its bigger waves, and this has to take that into consideration. I think the neighborhood certainly really benefit from a situation of having a float there. And I was just wondering, is there any other methodology? I think the old float actually worked fine prior to putting this too large. If they had put a smaller float there, I think it would have worked and would have been a better situation. May not have been destroyed in the end, but I understand this, the gallows aspect being a positive for being able to lift it up and remove it from the connecting to the dock, because it put a lot of pressure on the dock that was always there. So I think some of the engineering is thoughtful. And I don't have a clear opinion because I've only just seen this just now. I actually was just surprised to see. I wasn't quite sure what the terminology really meant. And I'm not sure if anyone else was in place. Any other neighbors might have been at the meeting tonight, at your location, unless it's all remote today. So, but I guess that's the only thing that I was just wondering about is, it starts to look a little more industrial, and the new dock is very strong. It's very capable, positive for the neighborhood. It's just, is there any, I think it helps the city maybe come down here less often and more durability over the time. So I understand why the idea came up, but that's my one aspect. And I know talking to a few neighbors, we all kind of said, gee, I wonder what the aesthetics are going to look like, having this look industrial when we're not a fishing pier. But anyway, that's kind of that input that I had. So thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rennie. We really can't comment on the aesthetics as that's not an environmental issue. And I would like our agent to direct you how to locate the materials on our website. And then I would ask Mr. Smith to address your concerns about wave action. Chuck?
Yes, if you want to send an email to conservation@gloucester-ma.gov. We'll be happy to send you the link and direct you towards all the plans online.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Smith, can you answer his concerns about wave action?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood his question on wave action. I mean, this is a very exposed site. It's got direct ocean access. We spent a significant amount of time several years ago doing coastal modeling. We have, obtained a significant amount of research from that March 2018 storm event, including photos and videos. So we know the wave impacts at the site. This is a seasonal installed float and gangway. It's a very tough site. It's certainly something that as an engineer, you can't stand behind, that it's gonna, all bets are off when you get these big storm events at the site. You just do your best. And that's what the city wanted. So we try to find ways that, can minimize future impacts. And by having this frame installed, that and you see them quite often in other communities, that at the time of a storm event, you're able to take that gangway off the float. As far as aesthetics, if you like, I do have a photograph of one that is almost identical to what we're proposing. This one's located up in Maine, and I'd be happy to show you folks what it looks like. It's going to be timber pile. It's going to match the existing pier. It's all wood, with the exception of some metal connections, very similar to the pier itself that we use. We had to use metal connections on that construction. It's going to fade and it's going to blend in nicely. It's not going to be a metal sort of commercial structure. It will have a winch that's going to be attached that does the lifting mechanism. So, yep.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't think it's necessary to show the picture.
Yep.
Okay, we were starting commission comments. Chuck, you want to pick up where you left off or start again?
Sure. Have you already started them? I'm sorry.
I thought we had done Mr. Cook, but let's give him another chance.
I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Okay, member Gradwell.
Gradwell thinks that this is a good solution to a complex problem. I walk the area quite frequently, and the pier and float are missed terribly by the local citizenry. Thank you.
Member Sargent.
No comment.
Member Sherman.
my comment is a question. It's not for the applicant. It's more for the chair or you, for the agent. Since I was not a member of the commission when this OOC was issued, just wondering if I can comment or vote on the amendment.
I don't see why you can't.
Okay.
It's a new section. So yeah, I don't see why you can't participate. And if somebody has an objection to him doing so, please speak now. Okay, did you have any additional comments?
Well, in that case, I would just like to say, I think something more resilient is favorable over, might have to, may not be as pretty, but if it's more resilient to storms, I think it's a necessary project.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Jackson.
No, I thought the plan was detailed enough that I had no questions on it, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, then we are ready to close. Is this a public hearing? No, it is now, I guess. All right. I guess, Barry, you want to close the public hearing?
Well, wishes to close the public hearing on amendment to NOI 02826 Shore Road, Magnolia Pier.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. And Barry, you want to move to approve?
Gradwell wishes to approve the amendment to NOI 02826 Shore Road, Magnolia Pier.
Commissioner
Mr.
Cook
Cook?
seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay. All right, you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have amendment to NOI 0282808 at 188 Hesperus Ave. John and Kelly Pekowski, represented by Ryan Wickman at Chestnut Grove Design Group. New landscape and hardscape plan in buffer zone to coastal bank. Okay, do we have Mr. Wickman here?
To be promoting now.
Okay, if you could give your name and address and a brief summary of the project, please.
Yes, good evening, members. My name is Ryan Wickman of Chestnut Grove Design Group, representing Kelly and John Pekowski. And our company is located in Woburn, Mass.
Okay.
So, yep, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Let's have a summary of the plan.
Yes, so we are proposing, this is a brand new build. Construction is already underway for the project for the house that, as you can see in this plan, for the proposed house there. Construction is underway for that. We have developed a landscape plan for the project. And what we are proposing here is installing, I'll start on the top right. We're proposing to install a pervious granite driveway. So it is a fully permeable driveway. I have details as well that are shown in this at the top side of the plan. So that shows the detail for what the pervious or permeable driveway would look like. We also have, leading from there, we have walkways that lead to the front door that also lead to the side of the house. Those walkways leading in that direction as well will be a permeable surface as well too. So they are granite pavers, yet the joints are all permeable. So water is allowed to percolate directly through the joints, and we create, as you can see in the detail, there are 3 different layers of a gravel base, which allows us to drop the water directly down beneath those walkways instead of having the water run off. As we get to the left side of the proposed house there, we come up to the first main patio space. Again, the first part I'll talk about is the stairs that lead up to that. The stairs in the top left side of this drawing, you can see the proposed scale of what that structurally will need to be. There is a concrete pad that goes beneath these stairs. And if you look at the top left side of the drawing there, you can see that. Hold on, where'd that go? Yep. So it is a 6-inch depth, and at the right side of that, there is an 8-inch wide by 24-inch tall concrete block wall, which the top step will sit on. But what it also does is it helps retain that patio, which is now between the proposed house and the stairs. It helps retain that patio in space and within that space. But again, that whole patio is going to be a permeable surface where all the joints, again, water will be able to percolate directly down underneath that and then directly down into the existing soil and beneath. As we work our way further down, 2 more stairs lead us down to a lower patio space. Again, it is a permeable surface, as the details are showing throughout the drawing here. We do have proposed as well a 42-inch fire pit. It is a propane fire pit, which is on the left side of that lower patio. And then also a grilling station with there's a propane gas grill, a pizza oven, and then a Kamado charcoal unit that are contained within that grilling station. Again, all of the hardscape services that we are proposing are permeable surfaces for what I've gone over so far. There are, again, the one piece of this is that granite stairs. The granite stairs, the base beneath that, it can't be permeable just because structurally it needs to be sound in order for us not to have shifting long-term on that upper patio. We also have 2 walls, one on the right side of the driveway and one on the left side of the driveway. So both of those walls, prior to the previous house being taken down, there were 2 walls existing there. The wall on the right side has already been taken down, and what we are just requesting is to be able to rebuild from the stone that we had on site. We might have to add a little bit more to just rebuild that small, and it's only like a knee wall height that goes in on the right side, and same on the left side. There's existing stone that was there from the previous wall that we'll be taking apart and just rebuilding there. So again, those 2 walls are not pervious or permeable surfaces. And then if we go down to the lower patio on the bottom left of the proposed house, there is a wall that is on the front side of that. Yes, leading right there where Chuck is showing. That wall is at its maximum height from ground level to top side is around 4 feet in height. But the patio itself is slightly below that. So the patio, that upper patio is really about, say, 18 inches below the top height of the wall. So the wall, if you're standing on the patio where the cursor is right now, that wall, it's a seating wall on that side there. And then if you drop down to the landscape on the lower side, it will be about like 4 feet, maybe slightly less, but at least that gives you kind of heights on that. What we are taking from the existing conditions plan and what the builder of the home had previously presented to the town, in that plan, it had called out the mitigation notes that we see here. So in the mitigation notes, we see a whole plant list of plantings that we are planning on using throughout the entire landscape. Our goal with the client was to make this property and the plantings to go along with the beachside landscape. And we're going to be using pretty much all of the plantings that are within the mitigation notes. And there are two pieces to that. So there is a mitigation planting, which in this plan, it shows it right on the front side of the property, which is on the back side of the seawall. And I believe that is proposed, it's 750 square feet, I believe is what that is. And then on the bottom side, yes, the rain garden there that Chuck is showing, that I believe is around 150 square feet. And that also has mitigation plantings within that, but the rain garden is a bit of a depression there. Now, if we go back to the other plan, what we are proposing is I have much more planting space within now the proposed landscape plan. I'll start with the rain garden. I'm proposing to put that in, well, slightly lower. See the light brown section? Yes. Yep. So putting the rain garden in that area there, so we'd create a depression and allow water to percolate directly down into just brown water there. We have plantings that will lead from there all the way to the seawall, and then plantings that lead to the back corner and then all the way back up to Hesperus Ave as well. And there are a few other planting beds throughout the property. And what we are aiming to do is to take the list that you have for the mitigation plantings and mix that all throughout our planting beds. What I am showing you right now is you can see along the bottom side of the property, there is switchgrass that we are proposing planting along the whole length of that area. So switchgrass is one of the plantings that you have within the mitigation notes. We're also proposing switchgrass up on just on the back side of the wall, which is right on Hesperus Ave. And then also some more switchgrass on the back side of the seawall behind one of the pines there. And then again, throughout, I absolutely love, I'm thinking in Latin right now. So it is the Arctostaphylos uber ursi, that plant. I'm trying to remember what the common name is. If it's the bayberry, yeah. So that plant we will be using as a ground cover throughout most of these plant beds. The sweet fern will be using that throughout a lot of these plant beds as well too. And again, we have the panic grass, the switchgrass, which they are both from the same, but we'll be using basically one variety of switchgrass throughout the property. I have also, I think on the right side of this plan somewhere, Chuck, here, I have some notes for a few other plantings that we're looking to add, which is right here. You can see, so planting bed space is 2,417 square feet. And what we're also looking to add, including what the mitigation notes state, we're also looking to add hydrangea arborescens, Nepeta, Pinus, Chamaecyparis, sedum, astilbe, and I know there's one other plant there, but I guess I can't. Hold on, let me move this and I can see what it is. Yeah, Caryopteris. So those are what we have right now that would be planted throughout all of these planting beds. And I think I have covered most everything, so I'm gonna pass it back to all of you for any questions or so forth.
Okay, since I opened up the last amendment for public comment, I feel compelled to do this as well. We don't usually have public comment on amendments, but I've set the precedent for this hearing, this meeting. So we will go through any public comments and have you listen to all of them and then respond to them if you would. Chuck, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 188 Hesperus Ave?
We've got Judith Suda here.
Name and address for the record, please.
Looks like she may be muted.
We can hear you now.
Hello?
Yes, hello. Could we have your name and address and then if you would describe your environmental concerns?
Yep, my name is Judith Sudis. I'm presently living at 86 Summer Street in Manchester, Mass. And my concern was I went down to Gloucester today to look at the engineering drawings because they're never submitted to the clients. So when I went down there, I did see the amended filing for the 14 new revisions. So specifically number 13 and 14 is to remove the trees on my land. And Chestnut Grove was to submit some summary reports, which I didn't see any. So I couldn't find anything there to address the trees being taken down on my land. So one of the questions I had, once you take a tree down, there's a water flow that is diverted, basically going directly into the stream, whereas the tree's roots soak up the water. So I couldn't find anything there addressing this problem, but I did want to meet with Ryan. Is it Ryan?
Yes, yep.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do, Ryan, is sort of meet with you to see if what your report was or your summary was. So at this time, I cannot address your request. I do have to follow my own rules and regulations with DEP, my final orders of conditions, so I must adhere to that. So if we could meet, maybe we could solve some of this.
Ma'am, are you the owner and a butter?
I'm the owner. I own
You're the owner.
193 Hesperus Avenue, so I'm a direct abutter.
You're an
So a
abutter.
lot of the water flow that comes down Western Avenue has now been, during the past 7 or 8 years, has been directed directly down Hesperus Avenue. So then
Okay,
the water hits several walls as it's going down. Every inch of water that comes down that street becomes 9 inches by the time it hits my land.
okay,
So the stream has a new configuration that it must meet the water flows that were not there 15 years ago or 7 years ago. So all I'd like to do is find out what the reports would be, if there's any information that we could review, Ryan, and see what you think. That's
Okay.
my concern.
okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Ryan will respond to everybody after we've heard all public comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
I have 9 attendees, and I don't see any other hands up at this time.
Okay, sir? Okay, so we're done with public comment. I'll close the public comment period. Mr. Wickman, do you want to respond? Are the trees on
Yes.
somebody else's property?
Yes, exactly. So I am glad she brought that point up because that is one piece I did not add to this, which we have a write-up coming from Save a Tree. And what we are going to be requesting is there are, in this area, there are 2 trees. One of them is completely dead, so there is no life to the tree. And in my drawing, I will need to amend this, but Chuck, if you scroll your mouse slightly to the left, where the word stone wall, if you see that, right there is a fairly large silver maple, which that silver maple is alive. We have coming in our write-up from Save a Tree, and we have images to show everybody. So Judith makes a very valid point about her concerns, which yes, these 2 trees are on her property. There is, again, the first tree, which is directly across from the driveway. That one is completely dead. So there is no life to that. And what our major concern is that with the new build and the construction, And if there is a storm coming at some point and it were to topple over and fall into this property, I know in dealing with insurance purposes and prior incidences, the tree, when it does fall from a neighbor's property, it is the current property owner's insurance that has to take care of it. So not the owner's property where the tree fell from, but it is actually the property owner who the tree fell into that has to take care of the damages and deal with their insurance. So that was just one of our concerns. But I'd be more than happy to meet with Judith and go through all of like our concerns. And once we have the report, I can get that directly over to her if she wants that. I'll also have that into the committee once that comes in. I was told it was supposed to be here this morning, but it is not here yet. So that piece to it in terms of like addressing any of the trees, I can't address that at this meeting. We'd have to do it the next one, but I'll move over to kind of the silver maple that is also on her property. That tree has one limb that is probably in diameter. It is probably around like almost 2 feet. And there is a lot of rot and decay that is fully visible on it. And that piece of the limb leans way over into my client's property. And again, that is one of our major concerns, even more than the tree that is currently dead on that property. Is this silver maple. But again, one of our concerns with that tree is if it were to come into like a significant windstorm and that limb would fall off of that tree, it would certainly fall towards our neighbor's newly built home. It would fall towards our client's home is what I'm saying. But again, there are concerns that we would have if that limb was to be pruned off. What our arborists, we've already talked to, but you'll get a full write-up on this. What our arborists were most concerned about is the tree has a nice, it's a decent V. So a lot of that tree pushes back, say, to the top side of, you have Hesperus Ave there, and it goes towards her property, which is above this. Just out of sight here is where like the dwellings that she owns are up above there. And if we were to prune off the side that comes towards my client's home, we are now concerned that the tree would possibly have challenges and issues dropping also back to the left. So in the write-up, you will most likely see a request if it was approved at all. And again, I'll speak to Judith in person. We'll go through all of these as well, that we would probably request to have that tree fully removed. But that again is once the write-up is done, and I'll meet in person with Judith and we can talk through all of these and get just a better understanding from her perspective as to what we're looking to do. And now the last piece of that is we have 3 pines. There are, I think, 2, there's one Austrian and 2 Scotch pines within this location. The tree that is closest to Hesperus Ave, it appears, if you look at it, it looks like the most healthy, but on the side closest to the ocean, there's a whole chunk of decay that is probably about 15 feet high, and it wraps around half of the tree. And what we are possibly proposing is to remove that tree. I am trying not to, because again, as I'm working with Save a Tree, our goal is to try to keep this tree, because structurally in the landscape, it is fantastic. It's fantastic for, again, pulling up moisture as well. But what we're trying to get a better understanding from the arborist is, do they believe that it is worth us trying to save it, or do they believe that it is in the long run going to be much more of a hazard for us to try that and instead of remove it? But that right now is where we're headed in terms of having a write-up coming and sending that to the Conservation Commission. So you'll be able to see that. But at this meeting, I don't have that information, so I can't really present all of that at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we've closed the public comment. Have we closed the public comment period? Yes, because you've answered the questions. Okay. There's no one else ready to comment. Is there, Chuck?
There is not. No.
Okay. It is closed then. All right, next up, commissioner comments.
Member Cook.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad we brought up the trees because I was gonna point out that we can't, as part of this NOI, approve or even show on it the removal of trees in someone else's yard. So that can't even be part of this NOI because we just can't do it. The second thing, though, is if these trees do pose a danger, we do have a process where I believe they can just go to the agent and it's an emergency tree cutting form that they can do. Arborist just has to say that it's a danger to the house and it can be taken down just with Chuck's signature.
Okay, so it's the one challenge that we have is if once I meet with Judith, and I know Judith, you're muted at the moment, but again, I'll meet with you. We'll go over all of this information. And once we have the write-up, Judith, I'll make sure that you have a hard copy of that as well. And then we can meet on site and look through all of these trees. And again, it will be, in the end, it's basically up to Judith if she would allow us to do that. Then I guess we could then move ahead with Chuck. But again, it will be, I'm going to put it in Judith's hands after I meet with her, and then we'd take it from there.
Okay, thank you.
If you could give Ryan my telephone number, then he could call me, or I can give it to you now.
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Yeah,
I'd
go
rather
ahead.
not do that in a public.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I have the information, Ryan, so you can contact me and I'll give you her number.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook, did you have any more to add?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Chuck, who's next?
Member Gradwell.
You're muted, Barry, I think.
Thank you. I'm very familiar with this site. This is part of my walking. The trees that he has in question are definitely on the other property on Hesperus Avenue, not on his side of the street. We have a form for 2 or 3 trees to be removed with no problem, but it has to be done by her, not by these people. The trees that he's talking about are all in terrible shape. I agree with that 100%. And if they had to take down 3 other trees on this property to get the house to the size that it is now. And definitely if we have to take down that tree on his property, I think it should be replaced with 2. Thank you.
Okay, Member Sargent.
I totally agree with the previous 2 commissioners, comments. I think it's overreaching to want to have us approve work on somebody else's property.
Okay, Member Sherman.
I was not a member of the commission when this project was approved, but it seems to me, other than the proposed home, just about the entire landscape plan is being amended. And I guess I'm wondering why all these concerns weren't addressed when this NOI was first issued. It seems like there's so much change going on in this property, and these trees were there when this first was approved. And why weren't these questions addressed at that time?
So that's a very good question, Robert. I was not hired until after the approval was already taken place. So your existing condition, the existing conditions plan with the proposed home and the information that was contained in that first plan that Charles showed, well, it's actually the second plan that Charles showed. Our company was not hired at that point. So I can't comment on any of that information. The builder was hired at that point, and then from thereafter, just the client came and hired our company to come in and develop a landscape plan. We do both the interior for the home and the landscape. So that the first part of the plan, we weren't there to be able to put any comment into that. So that's basically all I can comment on that.
Okay, Member Jackson.
I agree with Mr. Sherman. This is huge changes from the original plan. 2 questions. I know Mr. Gradwell is familiar with the site. I'm not sure that others are. I'm wondering if anyone is interested in a site visit. Second of all, I'm wondering what the increase in impervious surface is prior to the initiation of NOI 0282808 to now. Those are my 2 main questions.
Yeah, so that is on the second plan. So the landscape plan that I submitted, there's a whole chart that has listed out all of the, the new impervious table. So you can see on the left there, that was the impervious, the table on the left was the impervious area table that the builder had initially submitted prior to us even being hired. So they literally had no landscape plan for the project. So the client hired us to come in and actually create a landscape plan. So we've done that. And now the new impervious area table, what that shows you again is it lists out everything that was on the left side of the chart, but then it also shows you the increase in impervious area, which that increase is 380 square feet. But one thing that we have done is in that the initial plan, the proposed mitigation planting square footage was 750 square feet, but we will now be taking all of those mitigation plantings and putting them throughout a planting space, which is 2,417 square feet.
Okay. I did see that. I wasn't sure at what point measurements were being taken. Okay. All right. Is anybody interested in a site visit? I'm in Arizona, so I can't do that right now. I will be back next week, but I'm pretty fully scheduled next week. Is anybody else interested?
Well, I just want to say, I think, given the immense modifications to the original plan, I'm just wondering if this does not warrant not just not amendment, but a new NOI.
I've wondered that too. Chuck, can we poll members and see what
Sure.
they think?
Yeah, Member Cook. You're muted.
Yeah, I'm really not interested in a site visit per se, but I do think the impervious calculations are incorrect because originally they were going to keep the paved driveway and now they're taking the paved driveway out. So there's like another 600 or 700 square feet of impervious that's becoming pervious. That it isn't even in the calculations that I can see.
So Chuck, if you could pull up the existing conditions plan, I think either of those, it will show in that plan. Yeah, if you can pull that up, I can then show where it talks about the driveways so I can address Mr. Cook's concerns.
here or in the actual plan?
So the existing conditions plan, if you could pull that one up. So it's just the black and white plan.
Yep, that's what I have up here.
Okay. Can everybody else see it? I can't see it.
I can't see.
Oh, sorry. I'm not showing my screen.
Okay.
I can see it well.
Okay, so could you zoom in? So on the top right, bring us back to closer to the top right, you'll bring us up near the driveway here. So if you see on the right side there, so the existing pavement to be removed and replaced with a pervious surface. So that's what was in the existing proposed. And then we are also proposing for a pervious driveway as well.
Okay,
So hopefully that helps answer some of your concerns, Mr. Cook.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and we were in a roll call concerning.
Member Gredwell.
I'm available at any time. I've been watching the construction.
Okay, what about your feelings of amendment versus NOI? And let me just, maybe this is a good time for me to go out of order. Since an amendment is part of an existing NOI, I think the only difference is conceptual, that we can condition this as we would an NOI. So while it's significant enough that we would often have an NOI, there already is an NOI that we can add conditions to. Okay, go ahead, Barry.
Yep. If you want any kind of site visit, I'm available. If we, I don't see any necessity why this shouldn't be just an amendment, not a new NOI.
Okay.
Member Sargent.
I think this stretches the envelope on an amendment, but I'm willing to consider it as an amendment. But there's much work to be done in looking at if trees have to be taken down, if they're not, and if work's going to be done on the abutter's property, which I don't think can be done legally as part of an NOI. So it's not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
Member Sherman.
I'll just echo what Member Sargent said. Yeah, I just don't think, especially trying to write into an order of conditions removal of tree on an abutter's property, we can't do that. So I guess I would consider, still keeping an amendment, but it needs to be revised and need to be made much clearer.
Yeah.
Okay. Member
Okay.
Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. And I think at this point, we need to continue. We would like to see the Save a Tree report. We need more details in the aforementioned areas. So, Mr. Wickman, do you think you would be prepared to come forward on October 19th?
So that is 2 weeks. That is a Thursday, correct?
No, it's a Wednesday. We normally meet. on
Oh,
Wednesday.
okay.
There was a religious holiday yesterday.
Yes, yep. Okay, so October 19th. Okay, so just a
Gives you
couple.
1 week to put in all your changes.
Yep. Okay, so I guess a couple just quick questions just for clarification.
Sure.
So we had presented the removal of the tree because I wasn't sure how that process worked. So now I understand. So again, we are not trying to do anything out of order. I would rather just be transparent with the board. And again, with Judith as well, our goal is to work with her. So my question is, if Judith and I come to an agreement about the trees that are on her property, then what is the process that we need to go through in order to have those trees taken down?
I know Mr. Cook gave you one avenue. I had been expecting him to say an RDA, request for determination of applicability. Chuck?
in the case that it's potentially going to cause threat to, human safety or a structure, we can grant it as more of an emergency removal. If it's a healthier tree, that would be something that probably go to an RDA. So I guess it depends on the health of the tree and what the arborist report says.
Okay. Okay, so I guess what we will most likely do is, in terms of revision for our next meeting, is we would just take out anything that would concern Judith's property. And then I could do a site visit with whoever would like to in, say, the next week or so, to walk the site and see all that. And again, my goal would be to meet with Judith as well within the next week, if that's possible also, to then, in terms of the landscape plan, I'm not really going to have much revisions to that. It's basically just the tree part is coming out of what we're requesting. And that would, I think, be basically it. Is that what the board is looking for?
Yes, I think so. The trees seem to be the biggest concern, and some of us are a little surprised at the extent of change, but that's what you've presented, so.
I do apologize for that. I was not a part of any of this permitting process prior to this. So again, as I said, I know you might be surprised by it, but I was never involved. So again, that's why I would rather do this the proper way than incorrectly. So.
Yeah, and as I think about it, I think the amendment makes sense because you don't want two active NOIs on the site at the same time, so.
Yeah, just so you realize, if you do have to take the tree out on your client's property, Save Tree says go and remove that one, it would be a 2-to-1 replacement. So within your planting plan, you would have to show 2 new trees to replace the one that you're removing.
Okay, so that would be, are we talking about Judith's property?
No, on your clients.
Oh, yeah, okay, yes, yeah, so you have a caliper size as well. Does the town have a caliper size that we're required to? Or is it just, it's not by caliper, it's just replacement with 2 trees and the caliper size is not exact? Am I correct in that? Chuck, I don't know if you can answer that or.
I'm trying to think what.
I believe the act and the ordinance both say 6 inches. Minimum 6 inches caliper.
Oh, I guess multiple people were talking. I didn't hear that clearly. Sorry.
Bob, you said minimum 6 inches is what we usually.
6 inches, yes. I remember a previous commissioner used to say 7 inches, but I believe the act states it has to be a minimum of 6 inches in caliper for replacement. That's
Okay,
6 inches.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, a replacement tree. So if we took out 1 tree, can we replace with, say, 2 3-inch calipers? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying that I have to bring in extremely significant tree that's 6-inch caliper? Because most 6-inch caliper trees, if you see them on the nursery, the root balls will be about 4 feet in width, and some of them will be about 4 feet in height. Height of the tree will be around 30 to 35 feet at least.
Yeah,
So
we don't specify the height. We don't specify the height of the tree. We just.
Oh, I know, but I'm just talking about in terms of caliper, that dictates the size of the tree. So that's what I'm just trying to get a good.
Yeah, we don't dictate the size of the tree that you have to replace it with.
Oh, so
I believe we do it, and not the height, but the caliper size we do. It has to be 6 inches.
That's.
Excuse me, Chuck, would you mind looking back at some representative plans and seeing what the calipers of the trees have been?
Yes.
And let
just to
Mr.
clarify,
know.
The only place.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The only place that I'm seeing any diameter mentioned for trees is in the definition of a tree. So anything that would be under 6 inches would not be considered a tree. It doesn't reference that being the minimum size for a replanting of a tree. And I agree, a 6-inch caliper tree is a pretty good sized tree.
It's huge.
Yeah, so I'll take a look though at other stuff that we've done.
Thank you. And
Well, I just like,
go ahead.
I'd just like to say, if you're replacing a tree with a tree, it has to be a tree. Otherwise, you could put, you could remove 2 big trees and put in 2 saplings that are, half an inch in diameter. And that's why it has replacing a tree with a tree. Or 2 trees.
I'd love to see that reference, Bob, if you could send that to me.
It's right in the WPA.
Okay. I know other tree replacements I don't believe have been that size. And I know that we had a former member of the commission who was very knowledgeable about trees. And I've always remembered him saying that there's a certain size beyond which trees have a higher risk of mortality when they are transplanted. I just don't think we've required trees of that size, but I will look it up. And I'm sure Chuck will as well. Thank you. Okay, so you think you can have this information for the 19th, Mr. Wickman?
Yes.
Okay.
Certainly.
Barry, would you like to make a motion to continue this hearing to the 19th, to this amendment?
We have an amendment to NOI 028-2808 188 Hesperus Avenue. Move to continue this till October 19th, 2022.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, so we're all set to continue and we'll see you on the 19th.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wickman.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Next up, we have RDA 1742 at 43 Sumner Street. Where are we here? Lauren Sutherland to replace garage with a 2-story garage with residents on the 2nd floor in the buffer zone of ACEC. Do we have Ms. Sutherland on the phone, on the call?
Yes, I am promoting her now. She should be.
And Ms. Sutherland, if you could give your name and address, I know it's self-explanatory for the record, and then a brief description of the project, please.
Sure. Yep. Oh, there we go. Yep. So Lauren Sutherland, 43 Sumner Street, and my mom's here with me, Mary Jo Sutherland.
Okay. Hi. Nice to meet you.
So yes, we are building an addition onto our existing house, and the addition is a garage on the bottom level, and the top level is living space, and it's attached to the existing house via like a mudroom type space. And what Charles is showing is that we are 300 feet to the ACEC. It's a salt marsh, and from our property to the marsh, it goes down in a decline. I don't know if anyone's actually been to the property or not, but I can explain that in more detail if you'd like. So when you are at the marsh line, actually, let me start from our property. So we have our property line, and then we have Sumner Street. And then on the other side of Sumner Street, we have a short little wall because it then leads into the Sumner Street Cemetery. And then that goes back a little bit and you're still declining and you hit somebody else's property at 240_21 is the lot number. And then beyond that is the actual marsh. And I did do some research and I read the Wetlands Protection Act regulations, and I understand that the buffer zone is 100 feet from the marsh line. So our property doesn't hit that 100 feet. That 100 feet actually comes up to the other side of the street. So on the opposite side of our property. So yes, that is my description of what we're doing in the land.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to open this up for any questions from the public. And what we usually do is listen to all of the questions and then you answer, you respond to them afterwards. So Chuck, do we have any people in the public who wish to comment on the project at 43 Sumner Street?
There are currently 8 attendees and nobody has their hand up.
Okay, we'll close the public comment period and we'll go to commissioners' comments, roll call.
Member Cook,
First off, this is not an RDA. This has got to be an NOI. We're looking at putting a structure in that's almost twice the size of the existing house. It's doesn't even fit the requirements for an RDA. It's got to be an NOI.
okay, Member Gredwell,
I hadn't thought about that particular point, but if Bill is correct, then there's no question. Thank you, that's all.
Member Sargent,
I think only part of our proposed building is within our jurisdiction, within the 300 feet of the ACEC. And I think it could be an RDA if they did mitigation plantings. I'm very familiar with the area.
Member Sherman,
I tend to concur with Member Cook because this is an ACEC and part of the project does fall within that 300 foot zone. And we have had recent projects in this area. I think it does rise to the level of an NOI.
Member Jackson,
Could you show us on the site map how much falls within our jurisdiction?
Half of the garage,
yeah, so it'd be
or less than half.
this portion here.
Is it? Okay. Hang on. Trying to see it on my own screen.
Also like to point out that our closest neighbors at 45 Sumner, their lot 240_72. They built an addition in recent years and they are the same distance to the marsh as we are.
All right, so, the 300 feet to the ACEC, okay. So it's just that left-hand side. The north, south, western side that is within our jurisdiction. Okay, and you have. Okay, you're across the street. You have the cemetery and a granite wall. And a second stone wall. With all of that.
You can't even see the marsh from our house, actually. There's so many trees, you can't see it at all.
I'm okay with the RDA on this.
I actually at first tried to fill out the NOI and really nothing pertained to us on there. So that's why we went.
Are you on septic or are you tied to?
We're on septic, yep.
Isn't this part of the Gloucester wetlands situation, bringing it up to this, that even if it doesn't require under the state that the Gloucester wetlands would extend out to the 300 feet?
Right, but only part of the project falls within that 300 feet. Only that L-shaped part falls. So
Part of it's an existing garage.
I'm sorry, Dave?
Part of it's an existing garage.
Yes.
Yeah, there's already a structure there.
Yeah. And you're going to resurface the existing driveway with pervious, impervious? What's the surface now?
It's solid, pervious. I think
And what are you resurfacing with?
the same.
Okay, but it's existing.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I really don't have any problem with it being an RDA. There's very little increase there, given that there's an existing garage already there. And if you take the area of the garage, I think it's close to the area that you're building new.
Yeah, we've already been through the zoning board and they're supposed to take into account the natural environment. We're in all of our setbacks. We just had to go through the zoning board for the square footage. I think there was like a grandfathered rule about the size of the land and if you're gonna convert to a 2-family, so.
Yeah, yeah.
And I noticed that they have a fairly large front yard where the mitigation plantings could go.
Could you define the mitigation plantings, like more trees?
Yes, they're native plants designed to atone for increases in impervious areas.
Okay.
And to help the resource. We usually like it planted towards the area of the resource, which in your case with 2 stone walls and a cemetery and everything else, I don't know whether it makes a lot of difference, but.
Yeah, well, I do really want to plant some dogwood trees in between our property and our other neighbor at 240_23. They're like hug Bray Street, because we all love bird watching and the dogwoods are pretty, they flower, and we want to attract all the birds. So I am envisioning that. We just haven't planned for it.
Okay. Did you, existing building, did you calculate the amount of impervious surface that you were adding in the area of jurisdiction?
That I do not know.
Okay. What we usually like to do is have mitigation that at least matches the amount of impervious surface that you're adding and where you're near an ACEC. If you'd like to do a little more than that, we'd love it.
So what do you mean? Because it won't be all dirt where it is right now? Is that what you mean?
What you're doing is adding surfaces that will not absorb the rain by roofs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And if you take that line, the 300 foot to the ACEC, and calculate the square footage of the garage that is outside of that line, that's in our jurisdiction, and then calculate the amount of the new construction that is within our jurisdiction. And the difference between the two will be the amount of impervious surface that you're adding. Okay, you understand?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the amount of square footage that we would request mitigation for. And it would be nice if you had a little more specificity on what plants you were planting. If it's all dogwood, fine. If there are other plants that you would like to incorporate, would you be able to do that? And would it be in a position to continue this to the next meeting for you to be able to give us those details?
It would be in a position because we were supposed to start our project, and just quick summary, the building department ignored us back in January. So this was a real shock that we have to do this now. So yes, this is putting us behind, and I was hoping that this would just be a one and done meeting, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that works. I would also be willing to accept a condition that you submit a planting plan to the agent.
Okay.
With all of those calculations being shown on it and the types and numbers of the plants that you're going to, and where you're going to plant them.
Sure.
Commissioners, does anyone else have any other comments? Do we want to go through again and see where we stand on this? Chuck?
Do a roll call, I guess. Member Cook?
Yeah, just to see where we stand on this.
Okay, Member Cook?
I still feel it should be an NOI.
Okay,
Member Gradwell?
Along with Mr. Cook, I remember what happened down on the neighbors down there, what was it, 186? That it was adjacent to, it was part of the 300 feet of the ACEC, and how much complications we got into on that one.
Member Sargent?
I'm fine with the suggestions that Commissioner Jackson mentioned. I'd be fine with that.
Member Sherman?
I guess I would be amenable to the RDA, but I would not want to approve it without actually seeing the planting plan and the calculation of the addition of impervious surface. So I would not want to go forward with it without actually having that in hand and not just on a promise that it will be submitted at some future date.
okay. I think then, and I'm talking to the applicant now, I think it would behoove you to continue because there are questions right now about a 3-2 vote. And this would give you the opportunity to specify the impervious area and the planting plan, and B, give other commissioners a chance to rejoin. We have 2 members absent tonight, and to catch up on this, who would be able to vote one way or the other and make it definitive. So I think we're going to continue this, trusting that you will have it ready for the meeting of October 19th.
October 19th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And you
Mr.
want a planting plan and measurements.
Of the impervious area, the surface, like rooftop type things that do not absorb water in the air, only in the area under our jurisdiction, that area beyond the 300-foot line.
Yeah.
And you can subtract the existing garage because that's already impervious. We know it's there. So you can subtract, and it's the difference between those two. So you take the whole area that you're adding, you subtract the garage, the whole area outside the line, subtract the garage part outside the line, and that will give you your impervious. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. If you have any questions at all, call the agent. Okay? Okay, Mr. Gradwell, you want to make a motion?
We'll make a motion to continue RDA 1742 43 Summer Street till October 19, 2022.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook?
Yes.
Member Gradwell?
Yes.
Member Sargent?
Yes.
Member Sherman?
Yes.
And Member Jackson?
Yes. Okay, so we will see you on the 19th. Thank you. Next up, RDA 1743, 31 Norseman Ave. Leonard Chardo, replace existing deck and land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal resource areas. Do we have Mr. Chardo? And if so, Mr. Chardo, please introduce yourself with your name and address and a brief description of the project.
Pulling them up here now. Looks like you're muted still, Len.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Name
Great.
and address for the record, please, and a brief description of your property. Project.
Hi, my name is Len Chardo. I live at 31 Norseman Ave, Gloucester. And the description of the property, this, I'm sorry, the phone's ringing in the background here. So the, it's been quiet the whole time. So, all right, so.
Okay, I meant a brief description of the project, not the problem.
Okay, what I'd like to do, I'm gonna remove a 20-year-old existing deck that's become weakened over time and replace it with a new deck, using the same footprint, the same exact size. The deck is gonna be taken apart by hand. There'll be no machinery used. And it'll be, all the debris will be taken and to a disposal facility. And we are higher than the floodplain, so it shouldn't be an issue with any drainage or anything like that. We're not digging, and we're not, we're not going to disturb the ground, so it should be pretty. It will be very clean operation, and that sums it up. I guess just to take off the existing deck, it's impervious. The original plan, as you can see, at one end, it showed a screened porch. That screened porch was never built 20 years ago on the left-hand side. It's just an open deck, and we're going to keep it that way. And that's it. Same footprint, same design,
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open this up for public comment and see if anyone in the audience wishes to comment on the project at 31 Norseman Ave.
Currently have 7 attendees and no hands are up.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public comment period. Commissioner comments.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
I thought that on the top left-hand corner on what was supposed to be the screen porch, that there was an expansion of the existing deck. And he did not address that.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no expansion. The existing deck goes out in that area. It's approximately 18 by 17, and that's the deck that was originally built and approved and so forth. And we've had out there the whole time. And I don't know why that plan shows a screen porch, but we never went through with that, although that might have been the approved plan in the beginning. But no, the deck is totally pervious. The materials that we used back then, we used hemlock to frame the deck, which is kind of a, it was a natural material. Now they've got, pressure treated materials that are more environmentally friendly and more environmentally friendly. And that's what we intend to use. And they'll be stronger also. So that's what we really want to achieve is, safety and, good, strong deck that'll last.
Okay.
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Sherman,
No comment.
and Member Jackson.
I have no comment. I have no problem with this. Okay, then I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, RDA 1743, 31 Norseman Ave.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay,
We
you're
have
up,
a
Ricardo.
negative RDA on 1743, 31 Norseman Avenue.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Yep.
Roll call, Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes, now you're all set, Mr. Charter.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, next up, we have NOI 0282608 at 677 Western Avenue. Request for extension of order of conditions, construction of a home and appurtenances in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, represented by Tony Cappuccietti at Hayes Engineering, Inc. Name and address when you're on for the record, and then a brief explanation.
I have an Eric Lane with his hand up, so let's see. There's Eric. You're muted right now, Eric.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, sorry about that. My name is Eric Lane from Hayes Engineering out of Wakefield, Mass. Tony Cappuccietti is not available tonight. We are looking to get a year extension, final year extension on the order of conditions to build a single family house and the septic and access to it. We have been struggling to get permits to get access to the property because the actual frontage for this property is off Western Ave and would involve crossing the large wetland, which we're doing our best to avoid. There is access up to Lawndale through that 40-foot future road access, but we've been battling that. We've hired an attorney who's been negotiating back and forth with the planner and whatnot. It's been very slow progress. Our hopes is to have it worked out over the winter time, be ready to start construction in the spring, get the foundation, septic, and all this stuff in, and the site stabilized, over next summer. So we'd be done within the year with the site work, and then it would just be the construction of the house internally.
Okay, thank you. Let's open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 677 Western Ave?
Got two hands up. Amy Graves is first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Hi, I'm Amy Greaves. I'm at 12 Lawndale Circle. I'm an abutter to the property. I'm also the president of the Magnolia Heights HOA, which is the subdivision that abuts this property. This property in question also holds an easement to the development drainage. And I wasn't around when the order of conditions was initially approved back in 2018. And well, I lived here, but I didn't really know all about it and I wasn't involved. So I guess I'm I have a couple of comments and questions. One is I'm unaware of the activity that's been happening to pertain permits to access from Lawndale Circle, because we have a protective covenant and there's a number of issues at hand, but we haven't been alerted to any particular activity with planning. So I would be curious to see what they have done to take measurement, what they've done to progress the project. And also just to be aware, we do have drainage on that property that does impact conservation. So I just want to make sure that we're all, aware of the past. This has been going on since 2018. It's just been dragging on, and no, we're not objecting the build, but we want to make sure it's done correctly. The drainage is done correctly, that they're obtaining the right access to the property. If they are going to access from Lawndale Circle, they need to join the HOA and comply with all the covenants that we all have to. And the access road that they're proposing is also part of the subdivision. So I just want all of those facts to be known for those members that may be new to this particular property, and hope that, someday we can come to a mutually, agreement. But we as a development and abutters have not been contacted in relation to this project in several years since zoning denied them. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
Yes, I have Alicia Terenzi.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Name and address for the record, please.
Okay, bear with me. It's my first time on Zoom ever. My name's
Welcome.
sort of a dinosaur to media here. Alicia Terenzi, I happen to live on Western Avenue, 250 Western Avenue, Gloucester. I'm actually here for some other project, but I am familiar with this project. I looked up the wetlands. I went down there actually a couple of years ago. I thought it wasn't going forward since zoning denied the project. I just want to know, and I'm very concerned about access from Western Avenue because almost the entire frontage, with the exception of maybe 5 feet, is delineated as wetlands. And that particular stretch is basically underwater during the wet months. It goes down into like a ditch, as you know, as maybe some of you went out there, and then it rises up quite a steep incline. What is going on with the access from the Western Avenue front? Is this going to be from Lawndale Circle, as they indicated on the map, or is it going to be from Western?
Okay, thank you. We listen to all public comments at once, and then the applicant has a chance to respond. So thank you very much. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask? Okay.
I'd already muted her. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. She doesn't want to continue then. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
There are no other hands up at this time.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment period. Sir, would you like to respond to the concerns?
Yeah, our intention is not to access across from Western Ave, certainly, because we understand that there'd be a large wetland crossing and, you know, it's not good for anybody to go that route. There is an existing driveway off of Lawndale, and there has not been any actual filing with the city yet, which is why Mrs. Greaves has not heard of any filing. She will be noticed when there is one. We've been talking to an attorney. He has been trying to come up with a strategy that would work for us. And when the time comes, there will be a filing with the Board of Appeals. And they obviously be noticed because they are direct abutter.
Okay, thank you. And to the person who was wondering about plans, the plans are always available in the Conservation Commission office. You're welcome to go and view them at any time. And I don't know whether the old plans on Lawndale or whatever are available online or not, but they certainly are available in the office. Okay. Commissioner comments?
Member Cook?
Okay, previous person that had spoke brought it up. 2018 was the order of conditions. So based on 3 years, those conditions would have expired and it would require a new NOI. Unless I'm mistaken. So that's the first question. And then the second thing is, if they're only asking for a 1-year extension and they haven't done anything, any of the planting plans and anything had a minimum of a 2-year growing period. So a 1-year extension wouldn't even allow them to condition anything. So I think the first thing we need to determine is, when did the original order of conditions expired? If it expired last year, then it requires a new NOI. That's all I have.
Okay, there was an extension somewhere due to COVID. So we'll have to figure that in. Okay, next.
Member Gradwell.
No further comment. I think Mr. Cook's should be addressed, but I have nothing else.
Okay, Member Sargent.
Hi, Commissioner Jackson's correct. There's a tolling period where things got, where there wasn't a sunset on NOIs and other permits during the COVID period. And I believe that this property is probably still within, it can be extended, but you know, you can check that out, you know, the period, Chuck.
And Member Jackson. Member Sherman, sorry,
No comments.
and Member Jackson.
No comment. I do think we need to clarify that. Does the applicant know of the extension?
I believe there was an extension done prior to COVID to extend the order of conditions out, and then we got into COVID, and along with that extension, I believe by our calculations, we were coming to expire next month, I believe, which is why we're here now.
I know
Okay.
there was a modification to the orders, but there was no extension that I'm aware of.
Okay, perhaps I'm confused on that. We'll look into that.
All right. So we need to find out, I think we need to find out what that extension was and whether you are going to be required for an NOI, a new NOI, or whether we can just grant you the 1-year extension. So can we continue you to the 19th?
Yes, that's acceptable.
Okay, okay. Barry?
Federal wants to have an extension. Okay. Wanna
Just to
have a
continue the meeting.
continuation until 10/19/22 on NOI 0282608 677 Weston Avenue.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
Roll call. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, if both applicant and agent could do some research on that, it would be appreciated.
Certainly will.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other commission business, 50R Maplewood Ave, Zoning Board of Appeals inquiry, 40B permit application for affordable housing unit. Rep. Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal, representing.
What's name, Joel now? Joel.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name and
Um,
address?
Sure thing. I am Joel Favaza. I am an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, address of 123 Main Street in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I'm here tonight on behalf of William Wheat. He is the owner of 50R Maplewood Avenue. He, just for reference, is through an LLC, also the owner of 50 Maplewood Avenue, which is commonly known as the car wash location next door to this proposed project. It's my understanding that this matter is on your agenda tonight because we have filed a 40B application, so-called, seeking a comprehensive permit for 30 units of affordable housing at the 50R Maplewood Avenue site. The permitting authority with jurisdiction over these type of permits is the Zoning Board of Appeals. However, the Zoning Board of Appeals often reaches out to seek input from other complementary boards and commissions such as yourself, which is my understanding as to why this is on the agenda tonight. However, this is a little peculiar in that because a portion of this project does sit within a buffer zone, a 100-foot buffer zone to an identified wetland, which is on the other side of Whistle Stop Way, we actually will be coming before this commission with an NOI should we be successful at the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so I suppose my request, if there is to be input from the Conservation Commission as part of the 40B application, it would simply be that the Conservation Commission is withholding, judgment or comment until such time as the applicant appears before them with a proper notice of intent, and that any relief granted by the zoning board for this project be conditioned upon the satisfactory filing of a notice of intent and grant of an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And if we are successful at the Zoning Board of Appeals, only at that point would it make sense for us to come here. Successful at the
Then
Zoning Board of
hash it
Appeals,
out.
only at that point would it make sense for us to come here and hash it out.
That
Okay,
being said, I leave it in your hands as to how you want to respond to the Zoning Board of Appeals and how you want to provide input. We can go through the project now, but we have not delineated or gone through any of the wetland
considerations, because that, again, in our minds, comes as an independent and second/final step if we are lucky enough to get approval at the zoning board.
So there isn't a lot of sense in us providing much input at this point. Is that correct?
Yes, again, I would just suggest that you would request the ZBA condition any approval upon us returning to this Conservation Commission for a full scale notice of intent.
Yeah, I guess just
Point of
Go ahead.
order. Point of order is the zoning board of appeals, part of the petition that Mr. Favaza has had is they're a waiver from the rules and regulations of other regulatory boards and commissions of the city of Gloucester.
Yeah, so that was part of the legal advertisement that went out. If you actually dial into our application itself, we are only requesting waivers from elements of the Gloucester zoning ordinance. We cannot waive state regulations through the 40B process, and we cannot waive any local wetland requirements unless they are more stringent than the state ones. But we are seeking no waiver of any of the Wetland Protection Act or any of the Gloucester Wetland Ordinance itself.
Okay. We can't vote on a condition for the zoning board of appeals, but we can certainly approve a letter from the agent to the zoning board of appeals requesting that condition.
Or recommending even.
Yeah, recommending. Does that make sense to you, Chuck?
I'm sorry, looking something else up here.
I understand it's late. We cannot condition that the zoning board of appeals include a condition of our approval when it comes before us, but we can ask you to write a letter requesting that condition in their determination. Is that correct? Would that be the right avenue to pursue?
Yes, yeah, I mean, I believe this is a chance for the commission to kind of determine, you know, if there's other information we want to request at this point prior to the hearing, and then, you know, kind of request what we may want as far as our involvement goes.
Yeah, and I think that could, I think we need to, I'm not sure we know what information to request until we have the information that we usually receive before us with the wetland delineations and what they're planning to do and all of that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds like planning
All
to
right.
provide an NOI application for this, so.
Yeah, all right, so does it make sense to go through with commissioner comments on the process of postponing discussion tonight, but approving a letter from you to the zoning board of appeals requesting that condition in their findings? That it will come before us and that our approval is needed for their implementation. Okay, that makes sense. I'm not sure I worded it real well, but. All right, let's just go through with commissioners to see if they have any comments and whether they have any other alternatives to that.
All right, Member Cook.
You're muted, Bill.
Mute. I'm just, where's the wetland in relation to the buildings?
Let me pull it up here for you. So it's we'll see in the wetland buffer here.
Yeah, the wetland itself is actually on the other side of Whistle Stop Way.
Yeah.
And then the green shading area is part of the 100-foot buffer zone to that
Okay.
wetland. So it's separated as it is by a paved roadway, but certainly we'll still give it the, you know, due course and fair treatment and make sure we have all the details for you when we come back in.
Okay, That was the only question I had.
Okay, Member Sherman,
No comments.
Member Jackson.
Um,
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Sargent, skipping people here.
To answer Bill's question, a portion of this property is within the buffer zone to a wetland sometimes called the Emerald Forest that's located between Myrtle Square and Whistle Stop Way. This jurisdictional wetland, as well as the wetland behind Cleveland Place and Sargent Street, are all that remain of what once was a 1,500-acre Great Harbor swamp. Based on an initial review, it appears that the wetland buffer zone on the plan is smaller than the wetland buffer zone that's depicted on the City of Gloucester GIS wetland maps. And currently there's vegetation on site. Loss of vegetation and increased impervious surfaces exacerbate flooding that frequently occurs on this and adjacent properties. This proposal should come before the permit.
Were you done, Dave?
Yes.
Okay. Member Gradwell. Oh, you're muted there, Barry.
No further comment.
Okay. And Member Jackson.
Sorry, I had to connect my iPad up to a power source before I disappeared on you all. So I missed a little of the discussion, but I think it makes sense to do as I suggested earlier. Was that the general consensus?
Yes.
Okay. Then I think at this point, thank you. Then I think at this point, it makes sense to make a motion to approve the agent sending a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals to the according to the aforementioned discussion. I won't go through trying to wade through the verbalese.
Gradwell suggests that we approve the sending of a letter from Mr. Shade to the Zoning Board of Appeals that we will consider everything in good term.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
I'm sorry to interrupt during your deliberation. I would just request that that be clear that the Conservation Commission is waiting until if and when the ZBA approves. I don't want the ZBA to think they are unable to move forward, waiting for approval from the Concom. I'd like the letter make clear that you guys will be a subsequent stop and you will wait for them. They won't wait for you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pavaza. What he said, Chuck? Okay.
We recorded that.
All right. Roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Pavaza.
Thank you. And hopefully in a few weeks, we'll be back with an NOI. Have a good night.
Okay, good night.
Okay, 3 certificates of compliance requests. 0282686 14 Sunset Point.
Hello?
Janet
Hello?
Johnson.
Hello?
Um,
I had my hand up to make a comment about 50 Rare Maplewood.
it wasn't a public hearing,
Okay,
but if you would like to submit your comments in writing to the agent, we would be happy to consider them when we do consider it as a
Okay.
hearing.
all right,
Okay,
thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Okay. Certificates of compliance, RCOC 0282686 at 14 Sunset Point. Janet and Sean Sullivan, represented by Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal.
I believe my associate Lauren Weeks is on the call also. I'm going to turn this over to her if that's okay.
Yep, I am promoting her now.
And name and address for the record when you get on.
All right. Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Lauren Weeks. I am an attorney with Seaside Legal Solutions, office address of 123 Main Street in Gloucester. I am here on behalf of Janet and Sean Sullivan tonight. So last time you guys had asked to update the as-built plan, which we have presented. This one also shows the 7 new additional native species plantings. They are similar in size and density to the roses, but were able to be planted later in this year. So those are in. I've also provided pictures for those. And then in addition, you guys were concerned about the driveway on the neighbor's property. We were able to get in contact with them, and they provided a check that shows that they actually did pay to have a landscaper do that driveway. And I believe I provided the email as well for that. The picture that is being shown is also to show that those plantings are all on the property. My clients went out and did the line from the pins that were put in by the surveyor.
Okay, thank you. Chuck, have you had a chance to go out and view the property?
Yes, and to address the concerns that we had the last time. During the initial review, the plantings were fewer than what was proposed. And also, Rob had brought up the comment that they look like they're on the line, straddling the property. We also had the question about the additional drive area, and there was evidence that it was the adjacent landowner, and that's their driveway on their property, not this owner encroaching. So everything that we had questions about, I believe has been addressed. These were put down on the down gradient side of the property, as Member Sargent had requested. So everything looked taken care of it to me.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners' comments?
Member Cook?
No comments.
Member Gadwell?
No comment.
Member Sargent?
No comment.
Member Sherman?
No comments.
And Member Jackson?
No comment. I'll entertain a motion to approve RCOC 0282686.
The Gradwell suggests we approve RCOC 028268614 Sunset Point.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Member Cook?
Yes.
Member Gradwell?
Yes.
Member Sargent?
Yes.
Member Sherman?
Yes.
And Member Jackson?
Yes. Okay, thank you. You're all set.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Chuck, do we have representatives present on the next two? I was wondering if we could take them up as a group.
Let's see. We just have one person here, and I'm not sure if they're associated with one of the properties or not.
Okay, we'll take them up individually. RCOC 0281692 at 80 Woodward Street, Ernest and Jan Gravel.
Looks like that person dropped off.
La Machia Realty. The person clicked off?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's take them both up together. And RCOC, you didn't have any problems with these, as I recall. RCOC, yeah.
I had, let's do them individually, because I did have some questions about the second one. Yeah.
Okay, Woodward Street, we're on.
All right. So Woodward Street, I'm sharing some photos here. Basically, it was the installation of this pier and float. This was done quite a while ago, and they are in the process of selling a house, and I guess realized that the certificate of compliance hadn't been obtained. But it all looked to be built as in the plans. The float is put on stand so that it doesn't bottom out during low tide. Everything looked very stable. Obviously, it's been there for a while. So it looked consistent with the plans and boards of conditions as far as I could tell.
Okay. Commissioner comments?
Gladwell suggests we accept the RCOC 028-1692 for 80 Woodward Street.
Okay,
Commissioner Cook seconds that because he doesn't have any comments.
all right. There's always an opportunity for discussion anyway, so, okay.
Do you do a roll call?
Yes, please.
All right. Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gladwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Sherman,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Onwards and upwards. RCOC GWO 2021-001-132 Coles Island Road by Brian Patrickan, represented by John Judd Gateway Consultants, Inc. Chuck, you're on.
All right. And I know John was not going to be on tonight, but all right. So this one, new home. And there's an area down here that was lawn that was going to be transferred into some mitigation plantings. The majority of the plantings, I'd say probably 95% or so, all look very healthy and established, which for a drought year like this, I think is a pretty good success rate. So I think that area looked pretty well established. The areas I had concern of are the as-built rain garden here. This is from the proposed plan showing that there's going to be native shrubs and plants in there. As you can see, it's more of a sand trap. So I think the structure is there, but I don't know that the said plantings are present. And then the last questions I had were on the general stability. Everything's coming in pretty well. There was no real major issues of any erosion. There was a little bit of erosion where this wattle seems to have gotten dislodged. It was more of a sense that, the grass is very young. I could kind of feel it moving a little bit as I was walking on it. So it just didn't give me the sense that it's really, rooted in to be considered truly stable, especially given some of these steeper slopes. You could really still see the jute netting and stuff underneath there. So given that, I just wasn't sure that we could fully sign off on it yet, given the rain garden and the still fairly young grass. I'd be kind of hesitant to have any erosion control removed at this point, the way that grass felt. But
Have you communicated this to the applicant?
I have not.
Okay.
Just out there yesterday in the rain. So I thought John or somebody was going to be representing tonight. So
yeah.
Yeah, but geez, Chuck, that last picture you showed, it. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear they had sprinklers run out in that lawn.
Yes, there was a sprinkler out there.
And when was that taken?
Yesterday. There's the hose, the previous one here.
I'm only saying it because we've got, a lot of them, we require people to have 2-year growth and stuff like that. And this year, I don't know how we're going to handle it, because this year, unless they kept their water running against the rules, they'd probably get killed. I know I've got a lot of stuff that's been dying and stuff like that, including my lawns. So I don't know whether, how we're going to handle that going forward on some of this.
I did have a question from somebody from the mayor's office asking specifically about that. So I think in their, I don't know if it's out yet, I haven't seen it, but I believe in their next round of, information to the public on water usage, it was going to allow for watering of plantings required by the Conservation Commission for mitigation planting. So I think there was going to be an allowance for that type of planting to be watered still.
Yeah, won't help the people that have already killed their plants, but will help those going forward. Okay, yeah, we'll have to figure out an approach for that because that's a good point, Bill.
That rain garden looks like it needs a little rain.
Yeah, yeah. All right, then I guess we just don't approve it. We don't approve it. We don't reject it. We just I don't know why I'm echoing. I'm sorry. But we just move it to a different time.
Yeah, just leave it on there. We'll adjust it next week.
Well, I
I'll
don't think,
contact them. I'll contact them and let them know my findings. I guess the question is if you guys are in agreement with the rain garden and the current state of the grass needing to be a bit more established.
yeah, I think. Is there anybody who isn't in agreement?
No, the only, and this goes, it becomes a technical thing. If we hold on the rain garden because they haven't put the plants in, then if they put the plants in now, we're gonna have to give them a 2-year extension rather than a certificate of completion. Because we'll be looking for the growth moratorium.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah, if you would communicate to the applicant and maybe they can just request this again when they're ready.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
And do we need to vote on that? Or we're just, okay, continuing.
I think we can just let it go. We're not rejecting it. We're not really continuing because there aren't questions we have to answer. It's just plants need to grow and they need to comply.
Yep.
So I think we can just kind of take it off the table for the moment and just say it didn't get approved yet. Okay. Is there anything else in this marathon meeting that anybody wishes to address? Please say no. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you for your patience, all of you.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting and reconvene in 2 weeks. A little bit less than 2 weeks.
Commissioner Cook is taking Barry's stand. No. Yes.
Okay, roll call. Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes. Too close to vote tonight to vote no.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Sherman.
So if we have 3 no's and 2 yeses, do we have to keep going? Yes. Yes, adjourned.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Thank you all.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Everybody stay safe.
Yes,
You
you
too.
too.